بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We talked about the things that scholars have their consensus on, that they nullify your fasting. And we said that there are 7 things: eating, drinking, sexual intercourse, and the emission of semen intentionally. We have menstruation, the post-birth bleeding, and we have the apostasy, and finally the intentional vomiting. Now, it is not the minute you do one of these things, you immediately nullify and void your fasting. No, scholars say that you have to have 3 things altogether so that these things would nullify your fasting. The 3 things are: you should do it when you are knowledgeable. You know that these or this thing does nullify your fasting. And you should do it when you are willing. And this means if somebody forces you to do it, then it does not nullify your fasting unless you are willing to do it. And the last and third thing, that you remembering that this is not allowed for you. This means if you eat, if you drink, forgetting that you are fasting, then your fasting is accepted and it's correct. You have nothing to worry about. Where did the scholars bring this from? They brought it from a hadith where our Prophet ﷺ said that Allah Azza wa Jal has given him a special gift. He said that Allah has pardoned my ummah, has pardoned my nation, my followers, for me, for the sake of the Prophet ﷺ, for whatever things that they have done by mistake, or by forgetfulness, or by being forced to do it. And if you are forced to do something, then Allah does not ask you about that thing. And forcing things is something that you should be careful of. For example, if somebody forces you at gunpoint to divorce your wife, go ahead and divorce her. But it depends on what you feel inside. Definitely you don't want to do that, but he's forcing you. So you divorce her. And after he leaves, as if nothing has happened. The divorce is void. It's not accepted because it was done unintentionally. You were forced to do it. And this happens if your father-in-law comes in and his brothers and the family of the missus, they all come in and pressure you to do that. You may do that because of this pressure, because you're being forced, but it is not accounted for. Likewise, if someone forces you to give money or to make a gift, again, this is not permissible on his side. And you are not accounted for that if you were pressured and forced to do that. But if you're pressured and forced to do a sin, then you must not do that. As an example, if somebody at gunpoint tells you, you should kill this person, and you would say to myself, well, if I don't kill him, he's going to kill me. And I'm in need, I'm in jeopardy, man, I have to kill this guy, so I kill him. It tells you, kill this, the other one. You kill him, and you kill like 100 and 200. Well, from the very beginning, man, die and don't kill anyone. Die and don't harm anyone. If somebody forces you to harm someone else, then you must not do that. Because if you do, you're sinful and you'll be accounted for that. But if something does not harm people, like divorcing your wife, this is not accounted for, and it's not going to be counted. It is neglected as if it did not happen. Likewise, if someone forces you to eat, someone pressures you and it threatens you that if you don't eat, if you don't break your fast, I'm going to do this and that. If someone is standing on a bridge, for example, and is threatening to throw himself and kill himself. And if you don't break your fast, he's going to do that. So break your fast. Once you break your fast and he's on the safe side, on the pavement or whatever, and you capture this guy and you put him in a car and there's no threat that of him committing suicide, then you continue your fasting. And the thing that you ate has nothing to do with that. That is different from if you eat intentionally, but because you have to do something. Yeah. For example, if you are at the beach side and there's someone drowning, and there's no one that could save him except you, but you're fasting, and you know if you go, you will faint midway before you reach him, and you may drown you yourself. So you have to have something to eat, a candy bar, or you have to have something to drink so that it strengthens you and gives you power to go and save that man. Likewise, if you work in a fire department and there's this big, huge fire, and you have to go and put it off, but you're fasting. And man, if you are exposed to that heat, exposed to the gas and the smoke there, that this is going to be harmful for you. You will not be able to do your job as you're supposed to do, and this may be hazardous to others and to yourself. Then you have to eat and you have to drink. But you're not forced to do that. You're doing it intentionally. That's why that is why you have to make up for that day. Although there's no sin involved, you're not sinful. On the contrary, you'll be rewarded by Allah Azza wa Jal for doing this good deed. But you have to make up for that day. So these are the three things that must be present when you do some of the nullifications of fasting to be accounted for. If you are willing, if you are remembering, and if you know the ruling and the verdict that this thing nullifies your fasting, if you do it, then this voids your fasting and you have to make up for that day. I think that this is enough for today's session. Do we have any questions here?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. May Allah grant you the best yours.
Ameen.
I'd like to ask you about a man has sexual intercourse with his wife and awakens in a state of impurity after the break of dawn, and the fast has begun. What must he do?
To answer your question, we specifically mentioned the 7 things that nullifies a person's fasting. And we said that if there's an 8th thing, then it is not included, because only these 7 things, the scholar have their consensus that they void and nullifies your fasting. Now, if someone has sexual intercourse during the night, or there is emission of semen, unintentional during the night, then this does not affect his fasting by no means. The Prophet ﷺ, as narrated by Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, she told us that the Prophet ﷺ used to have intercourse with her, go to bed in a state of sexual impurity, then the dawn breaks of the day of Ramadan, and he takes a total bath and goes to prayer. So this means that being in a state of sexual impurity does not affect your fasting. You should. It's not one of the conditions that you have to have before the break of dawn. It is not a must to be sexually pure before the break of dawn. It's a different thing. So if you do this and you go to bed and you wake up after the day, the dawn has broken. If you wake up in the middle of the day, you skipped salah for one reason or another, you were tired, too tired, and you woke up at 9 or 10 o'clock, and you are in a state of sexual impurity, this does not affect your fasting. Likewise, if a female has her monthly period in a state of menstruation, and she becomes pure, the blood ceases, stops before the break of dawn, and she sees the white thread, which is a sign that she is pure. Women know this sign. When the blood stops, usually they have this white thread known as al-qassatul bayda. If a woman sees this a minute, a second before the break of dawn, then she is legible, she is expected to fast, and she must fast because now she can fast. She has all the necessary requirements. She is pure, she is clean, she may fast, though she may not pray yet because she did not perform the total and obligatory bath. But this is a different story. Likewise, if a woman is clean and she has no bleeding of her monthly period, and a second or two before the sun sets, before she can break her fast, she gets her monthly period. Then immediately that day is cancelled because she had one of the notifications of fasting, her monthly period. Although it's just a second or two away, a minute or two away. But this means that she did not complete the whole day. That is why she is required, she is asked to make up for that day. Any more questions, please?
When a person enters Islam, does he have to make up for all the prayers he missed before Islam?
Mm-hmm. Well, when a person enters Islam, does he have to make up for the prayers he did not pray? No, he does not. See, when he was not a Muslim, he did not do anything and he was not required to do anything. The minute he reverts to Islam, he starts from scratch. It's a new page altogether. That is why we encourage people who did bad things in their lives, that those who are not Muslim, to revert to Islam, to open a new page. It is very easy. Even if that person killed people, raped, stole, embezzled, did anything that is bad and wrong, the minute he says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and accepts Islam to be his religion and his way of life, the minute he does this, he becomes a Muslim, and immediately everything he did before reverting to Islam is erased. And some scholars say it is not erased, it is transformed and changed into good deeds. So all your bad deeds, like if you have like 10 million bad deeds, it is changed into 10 million good deeds immediately.
Is it the same for a Muslim who wasn't used for praying and decided to begin praying to do the same thing?
Well, if a Muslim was not used to praying, if a Muslim did not pray, then he's not a Muslim. So the minute he decides to pray, he becomes a Muslim. But if you put it in another way, if you say that if a person who was a committed Muslim, and all of a sudden he becomes a non-Muslim because of act of apostasy, whether he mocks about Islam or whether he changes his religion, he becomes a Christian. And after a year or two, he discovers that, no, this is not what I want to do. And he goes back to Islam. This happened before. So in that transitional period, a year or two, he did not fast, he did not perform any prayers. So do we ask him after reverting to Islam once again to do that? No, we don't. Because that transitional period erased everything that was before it. And there is a verdict, the most authentic verdict among scholars is that if you perform an act of apostasy and you become a non-Muslim, and then you change your mind and become a Muslim again, you should start from scratch. So even the Hajj you performed before is void. You have to do it once again as if you've opened a new page. This is a matter of dispute among scholars. But to be on the safe side, you have to do it all over again. If a person who is a committed Muslim and abandons prayer, then immediately, the minute he abandons prayer 100%, he is not a Muslim. If he goes back again and wants to be committed to prayer and starts praying again, he should not make up for the days he left, simply because we mentioned this in a previous lesson, that the Prophet ﷺ told us that to make up for the prayer, you have to have one of two reasons. Either you slept or you have forgotten it. So if you're engaged in your daily work and the call for prayer is a minute or two away, and it calls for prayer and you're still engaged on your work and doing this and calling and meetings, and you have the intention to pray but you forgot, and all of a sudden it calls for the second time, or you don't remember that you did not pray Dhuhr until you go to your house at night or the following morning. The minute you remember, you should perform this prayer, and this is the only expiation for that. If you slept and you did not pray a certain prayer, the minute you wake up, you should pray it. And these are the only two reasons. There is a third reason, which is due to fighting. If you are in jihad, if you're in combat, and you are fighting an enemy, and the time of prayer is there, but you are in the midst of gunfire and shell fire, and you can't even take like 10, 15 seconds to pray. Then scholars say, because that you are in the midst of that all, you may delay it the minute they cease fire, and the minute you are able to perform prayer. But to go back to your question, if a person reverts to Islam, he starts all over again. He does not make up for the prayer nor for the fast, because he was not a Muslim. And likewise, if a person who was a committed Muslim, then he changes his religion, performs an act of apostasy, then goes back again to Islam, he should start all over again. Yet, he does not have to make up for the fasting, nor for the prayers he did not pray during that period. I think this is all the time we have for today's session. And until we meet next time, في أمان الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.